Office of the Governor, the Chief Officer is Charles Chalo Mutinda. Finance, Economic Planning and Revenue Management. The CEC, Finance, Economic Planning and ICT and Revenue Management is Onesmus Muya Kuyu. Kasanga Julius Muindi, Chief Officer, Finance. Mutua Tobias Mutuku, Chief Officer, Economic Planning. Machogu Ian Obare, Chief Officer, Information Communication and Technology Infrastructure. Mike J. Senga, Chief Officer, Revenue Management. Roads, Transport and Public Works. The CECM, Roads, Transport and Public Works, Consolata Mutisia. Chief Officer, Roads and Transport, Justus Musau Kasivo. Chief Officer, Public Works, Papa Koin Lompo. Agriculture, Food Security and Cooperative Development. The CECM, Agriculture, Food Security and Cooperative Development, Joel Nzomo Kiilu, Bishop. Chief Officer, Agriculture and Food Security, Vincent Muendo Musili. Mutua Tobias Mutuku, Chief Officer, Economic Planning. Machogu Ian Obare, Chief Officer, Information Communication and Technology Infrastructure. Mike J. Senga, Chief Officer, Revenue Management. Roads, Transport and Public Works. The CECM, Roads, Transport and Public Works, Consolata Mutisia. Chief Officer, Roads and Transport, Justus Musau Kasivo. Chief Officer, Public Works, Papa Koin Lompo. Agriculture, Food Security and Cooperative Development. The CECM, Agriculture, Food Security and Cooperative Development, Joel Nzomo Kiilu, Bishop. Chief Officer, Agriculture and Food Security, Vincent Muendo Musili. Chief Officer, Livestock and Fisheries Development, Mulwa Albert Katumo. Chief Officer, Cooperative Development, Mutunga Anthony Mutuku. Water, Irrigation, Environment and Climate Change. The CECM, Sanitation, Irrigation, Environment and Climate Change, Catherine Mutanu Raphael. Chief Officer, Water Irrigation, Gulie Abdullahi Yunus. Chief Officer, Sewer Sanitation and Waste Management, Paul Mawili Wambua. Chief Officer, Climate Change, Mutunga Zipora Kavata. Chief Officer, Environment, Muia Andrew Mwema. Health, the CECM, Health, Daniel Munyao Yumbia. Chief Officer, Medical Services, Dr. Mienda Wycliffe. Chief Officer, Health Facilities, Infrastructure Development, Kala Mohammed Rashid. Chief Officer, Public Health, Simba Simon Mwako. Education, the CECM, Education is Philip Mutua Kilonzo. Chief Officer, ECD, Maureen Mwende Mainge. Chief Officer, Vocational Training, Mulei Stephen Chalo. Devolution, the CECM, Devolution, Joyce Mwikali Muindi. Chief Officer, Public Service Performance Management, Mwanza Lawrence Mainge. Chief Officer, Inspectorate Firefighting and Emergency Services, Kano Retired Gideon Bithi Wadhi. Chief Officer, County Administration and Decentralized Unit, Masindululu Mutua. Chief Officer, Public Communication and E-Government, Mule Daniel Lemba. Chief Officer, Public Participation, Citizen Engagement and Customer Service, Kinyai Bruce Isika. Trade, Industry, Tourism and Innovation, the CECM, Trade, Industry and Tourism Innovation, Sharon Ndoki Mutua. Chief Officer, Trade and External Relations, Kidheka Simon Kioko. Chief Officer, Small and Medium Enterprises Development, Winnie Ndunge Musyoki. Chief Officer, Digital Economy, Ifra Sheikh. Chief Officer, Tourism and Culture, Kioko Banis Mweni. Chief Officer, Industry and Innovation, Munyao Joseph Mutwiwa. Lands, Urban Development, Housing and Energy. The CECM is Nathaniel Nganga Ruben. Chief Officer, Urban Development Housing, Adipo Collins Otieno. Chief Officer, Lands, Medho Benson Kituku. Chief Officer, Energy, Simon Kirima Muraguri. Gender, Youth, Sports and Social Welfare. The CECM is John Mwangangi Kilonzo. Chief Officer, Gender and Social Welfare, Dr. Benedict Wavinya Mutiso. Chief Officer, Sports, Ngumbao Mutiso Benedict.